Okay, great. I'd like to call the Town of Rochester Town Board public hearings meeting to order. If we could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can you do the roll call?
Councilman Ciari. Here. Councilman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Dindal.
Here.
Councilman Smaثeth. Here. Supervisor Newman.
Here. Thank you. So thanks for being here, everyone. I'm just trying to look and see. We should keep an eye out just to see if anyone joining on Zoom to comment. This is a meeting right now that will have 3 public hearings. The first is on the preliminary budget. The second is the overriding the tax cap local law. And the third is a continuation of the public hearing for local law K of 2024, which is the zoning, amending the zoning map. After the public hearings, we'll have our workshop meeting. So we'll adjourn the public hearing portion of the meeting and we'll go into the workshop meeting, which is the time for the town board to discuss matters that are on our agenda. We're starting with the presentation of the preliminary budget. Then we'll get into the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing, but I thought it would be helpful to just share some details about what the board was what we were doing when we reviewed and created the preliminary budget. Okay, so this is 2025 preliminary budget. This is the presentation for the public hearing. So first, I just wanted to do a quick overview of the budget process. It starts in September when budget requests are submitted to the supervisor by department heads. We had department meetings with departments this year, with myself, the budget officer, and departments. Based on that, I created the tentative budget. So the tentative budget this year, what I did was I really just put in straight up requests from departments and from the town board and from boards and commissions. And then that's what got published for the tentative budget. The tentative budget is then presented to the town board within 5 days of filing. So that was early October. And that's when we start the budget review process. This year, the town board, the budget review process happens with the town board. So we had about 4 or 5 meetings where we discussed the budget, going through it line by line, and make changes, discuss things, make edits. Also during that time, I receive some actual information. So oftentimes in the tentative budget, there will be estimated revenues, estimated expenditures, and those adjustments get made. Those adjustments also get made to the preliminary budget. So this year, the town board decided to live stream all of our budget meetings. So you will find those on the YouTube channel if you want to go back and see our discussions. It's not very structured because we just have an open conversation where we go through line by line and we meet with departments. So there are several meetings where the departments are there and then we would be looking at the department's budget. So we really wanted that process to be transparent. Once the board feels the budget itself is ready to be called the preliminary budget and to schedule a public hearing, we do so. The public hearing must be held on or before, it should say on or before, the Thursday after Election Day. So that's by law, that's today. So that's why we're having this today. So when we do that, that version of the budget that we post, that also has to be posted at least 5 days in advance of the hearing. That version of the budget is the preliminary budget. After the public hearing, the town board may make changes to the budget. So we're still working on a draft. So I just wanted to make that clear. And we must adopt the budget on or before November 20th. So right now, we have one board meeting scheduled for the 14th, but if we don't feel like we're ready for the budget to be adopted, we'll need to schedule additional meetings to make sure that we can stay to that schedule. So the budget itself represents all expenditures and revenues that come together within the fiscal year. So we're only looking at things that happen from January 1st to December 31st. Whatever is left over in our budget that's not covered by additional revenues, which I'll show you later, is the tax levy. And so that number, the number that we're missing, that's what we have to raise by taxes. So that's one number. The tax levy is one number, but the way the tax levy gets paid for is through property taxes. And those are based on assessed values for properties. So the budget, the tax levy itself gets split up to a certain number per $1,000 of taxable value of property. So there's two components to the budget. So one is just that lump sum. The other is turning that lump sum into a dollar amount per thousand. So this is important to understand because that is based on our final assessment roll, which is the schedule for that is a little different from the budget schedule. So the rolls get published July 1st. And that, so everyone should know you'll know what your assessment is now. We can look those up. And that is what you then multiply if you're a property owner. If you're not a property owner in town, you don't pay town taxes. But that's what you use to determine what your tax bill would be. So the more, it's not necessarily true that just because an assessment goes up, that doesn't necessarily mean your taxes go up. If everyone's assessments goes up in town, that just makes that number per thousand less. But what's been happening in our town is our assessor has been putting, the way we say it is putting value on the tax roll. And that's when there's been improvements. So all the building that's been going on and the projects that have been going on in town, when those are completed, the assessed value for those properties go up. Also, people sometimes will lose an exemption. So if a property changed hands and it used to have a senior exemption on it and now it doesn't, that there will be more property value back on the tax roll. So when we're looking at up until this year, right now, what you see is a 3.43 increase in value. And that is just based on the addition of properties onto the tax roll. So most, unless you've had a change or something has triggered an assessment, your assessed value is probably the same from year to year. So I just wanted to point that out. So last year, the assessed value that I have in the assessor's report is 978 million and change. And this year, the assessed value that I have in the assessor's report is 1,011 million and change. And I just want to point out this number, I got this number more recently than what was published in the tentative budget, because this came from the assessor's report. And I have a copy of that. So what I wanted to just present in this presentation mostly is to talk about what are we funding when we're funding our town taxes. So our town, and I'm mostly going to review general fund and highway fund. So the one big part of town taxes is the general fund. General fund budget priorities, just like what they are, it's the town clerk's office and operations, that includes 3 full-time clerks. It's the code enforcement, office and operations, transfer station, all the boards and commissions in town, the care and maintenance of all of our parks and community events, our recreation department and affordable community programming, which includes after-school programming, summer programming, and our senior programming. Public safety, i.e. the constabulary, the town justice court, the assessor's office, dog control, buildings and maintenance. So our town has 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings basically. And so it's all the heating, all the, like, everything for all of those buildings. The vehicle maintenance for non-highway vehicles comes through that budget. The supervisor's office, which is, that would be all the bookkeeping, all the HR, all the payroll, all benefits are processed through my office. Everything having to do with staff administration, plus all town board actions. So that's just an overview of what is covered in the general fund budget. There are more things. We also contribute to community, like the Kerhonkson Pool and the libraries, the community services that we don't offer as a town.
Insurance or time.
Yes, yeah. So in terms of the general fund budget priorities that we have that that you see in the numbers this year. So the budget focus this year is number 1, to be responsive to the requests of the community. So we have had multiple requests since I've become in office weekly to have additional staff and positions in code enforcement. So we now have in the 2025 budget, there are 3 positions now that have the ability to issue permits, issue violations, and to do inspections. And those positions typically have a higher hourly wage than, say, like a clerk position, which is what we're replacing in the office. Funding for more communications to the public. We have heard that everything should be more transparent, we should be more proactive, and we should be reaching the community using all avenues. And so I've put this into the budget. It costs $3,000 to do 1 town-wide letter mailing. So that's just for perspective if we want to, and I've actually, only included like 2 town-wide mailings I did a little bit more because we're expecting that those are not going to be letters necessarily. But this also includes continuing to upgrade the website. Some of the software that we're getting is meant to interface with the public better. And then the 3rd big priority that you see is more public safety staffing hours. So these have all been things that have come up on several times a month at least from the public and in multiple public hearings. Our operations focus this year is we're upgrading software for streamlining systems across all departments. This includes permitting software for the code enforcement office, permitting software for the planning board office, and new licenses and email ability for all town departments. Also, operations focus, what you see in this budget is 2 new positions added to this budget. We actually have 4 positions that would be new in 2025, but 2 of those were budgeted in 2024. So those have little impact on this budget because they were already in the budget. We just didn't fill those positions. The 2 new positions added to the 2025 budget are a part-time town planner, which has